Hello.
Hi.
So I had quite an intense morning, and had a question about that because I was trying to do a yoga practice, and I've been doing that for a year now. And secretly, I started to resent it. And this morning, I felt why, because I'm giving it this moral charge, all the instructions as if they are moral imperatives almost. And I do that also with other practices. And I was wondering how else I can see it. How else can I do spiritual practice or yoga or...
Why do you practice yoga?
I don't know.
There must have been, you said you started a year or so ago, so there must have been some impulse to practice yoga. What was that?
Yeah, I've been to some spiritual retreats with a lot of sitting and meditation, and I felt like I just wanted to move the body. So it was pretty simple, and I remember the first time I did yoga, it was really great. I had no expectation.
But okay, and what do you hope to achieve by doing yoga? What would you like to achieve by doing yoga?
Almost as if I want to include the body in this clarity that I sometimes experience.
Okay. That's a good reason for doing yoga. Because often our experience of the body is left out of our spiritual practice. But you then said you do various other spiritual practices. You don't need to tell us what they are particularly, but why do you do them? And please don't misunderstand me. I have nothing against yoga or spiritual practices. I'm just interested in why you do them.
I guess 7 years ago I heard this idea of reality and that it might be different than I see it right now.
Okay. And you were interested in what that might be.
Yeah, I keep investigating it. Yeah.
Okay. So would you agree that your experience now is real?
Yeah. It seems like it.
Could you describe an unreal experience to us? What would an unreal experience be?
Like a dream.
But when you have a dream, is your dream not real? Is it not a real dream? There's reality to your dream.
Yeah. There's a real experience.
There's a real experience. What would an unreal experience be?
I can't imagine.
Can't imagine. Even the most extraordinary experience would still be a real experience. And if we are having an experience, we are, by definition, experiencing its reality. Let me elaborate what I mean by that. Let's say we're watching TV, we're watching a movie, and in the movie there's a landscape. This is just a relative analogy that I'm making. So the landscape is not a real landscape. Yeah, it's an illusion. There's no real landscape there. But even though the landscape is an illusion, it has a reality to it. Something is there. Yeah, when you go and touch the landscape, you don't find fields and trees and sky.
Yeah.
What do you find? Relatively speaking, it's not a trick question.
I experienced the idea of a landscape.
No, when you go up to the landscape and touch it.
Oh, like a screen.
You touch the screen. In other words, in this analogy, the landscape is an illusion. It's not real. But there is something about, it's not a real landscape, but there is something about the landscape that is real. And when you go close up to it and touch it, you find that its reality is the screen. Take the example of a mirage in the desert. It looks like a lake of water. But we know the water is an illusion. But it's not nothing. As a pool of water, it is an illusion, but as a play of light, it is real, relatively speaking. So in both these cases, if we are experiencing the landscape, the illusory landscape, we are, whether we realize it or not, seeing the screen. Yes? Yeah. You can't see the landscape in the movie without seeing the screen. Yeah. Likewise, if we're in the desert and we see the pool of water, we may not realize that it's a play of light, but nevertheless, we are seeing the play of light. In other words, whenever we see an illusion, we are by definition seeing its reality. Yes? It's not possible to see an illusion without at the same time seeing its reality, although we may not know we're seeing its reality. Are you with me? Don't say yes if you're not.
Only the last sentence.
Whenever we see something that is illusory, we are by definition seeing its reality. Yeah. When you see the pool of water in the desert, you are seeing the play of light. You may not realize it, but you're still seeing it. Yeah. When you see the landscape in the movie, the illusory landscape in the movie, whether you know it or not, you're seeing the screen. Yeah. So whenever we see an illusion, we are seeing its reality, by definition.
Seeing it for what it is.
We may not realize we're seeing it, but we're seeing it. When we look at the landscape, we see the screen. We're seeing what it really is. Now, as you rightly said, this could all be an illusion. When 7 years ago you heard that there may be, that this may not be what it appears to be. I mean this room, your current experience. This might be an illusion. And when I asked you what got you on this path, you said 7 years ago, I heard the possibility that there was something more real than what I had previously taken to be real. In other words, all of this, in this case, this room, your thoughts, your feelings, everything you experience might not be what it appears to be. It might not be made out of stuff called matter, separate from yourself, etc. But even if it is an illusion, you are by definition seeing or experiencing its reality. Yes? So now look at your current experience. The sensation of your hand on the mic, the sound of my voice, the sight of this room, whatever thoughts and feelings you're having. They may all be an illusion. You may be dreaming now. We can't be sure that we're not dreaming now. But even if we are dreaming, there is a reality to that dream. And if we are experiencing the dream, this possible illusion, we are experiencing its reality. Now, what is that? What is the reality of your current experience? What is the stuff out of which your current experience is made?
There seems to be aliveness.
Yes. Yes, that's, keep going. What else can you say about it? It's alive. Alive. If you were to try to touch the stuff your current experience is made of, take the sound of my voice. Yeah, the sound of my voice is not nothing, is it? It's not a blank, empty void. Something is there.
Yeah.
Now, if you try to touch that stuff, I don't mean touch it with your hand, but try to taste the stuff it is made of. What is there?
Yeah, there's a sense, no, awareness and knowing. Yeah, you call it knowing. But
Knowing. Well, but now you're giving me the answer that
I know.
you've read in the book.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you the question the other way round. Okay, let's start with a sound. So is there anything, in your experience, is there anything to a sound other than the experience of hearing?
No.
And is there anything to hearing other than the knowing of it?
No.
Can you get further back in your experience than knowing or consciousness? In the same way that we can reduce the sound to the experience of hearing, and we can reduce hearing to the knowing of it. Can you go further back? Is knowing made out of something other than itself?
There seems to be someone who knows.
Tell us about that someone.
But I can't point to it.
Well, you claim there is someone, so what are you claiming? What are you... You're labeling something as someone. Tell us about that something. The someone that knows it. That is independent of knowing. This someone for whom knowing is just an attribute or a quality.
Yeah, like a location. Feels like a location.
Okay, but is there anything to that location other than the knowing of it?
No.
So tell us more about this someone.
Yeah, I have to think in order to make someone there.
You have to imagine
Yeah.
in order to
Yeah.
make someone. But when you look for that someone, anything that poses as this someone, like this body, or all there is to your experience of that someone is the knowing of it.
Yes, that's really strange. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's strange.
Okay, now go anywhere in your experience, not just what you're currently experiencing, but just let your attention go anywhere in experience. Any experience that you imagine or remember. Have you ever encountered anything other than the knowing of your experience?
No.
Could you ever encounter anything other than the knowing of your experience?
I don't think so. If I cannot now, then why later?
Sorry?
If I cannot now, then I don't think I can do that later.
Has anyone here ever encountered anything other than the knowing of their experience? If all that is ever known is the knowing of experience, in other words, if knowing or consciousness is the only stuff that is ever experienced, how can we legitimately claim the existence of anything apart from consciousness? Can anyone here point to something that takes place outside the field of consciousness? What sort of an experience would one be that takes place outside the field of consciousness? Try now with your attention, all of you. Just go with your attention and try to encounter something that takes place just outside the field of consciousness. So coming back now to your original question, what is What is the reality, the substance, the stuff out of which your experience is made? Don't answer the answer that you know that I want to hear or that you've read in a book. Answer from your experience now. Just your simple, ordinary, current, direct, intimate experience. What is the stuff your current experience is made of?
I could say me. That's how it
Okay,
kind of feels like.
me is a perfectly good name for it, but in the context of our conversation, you're quite right, it is what you are. You're absolutely right, it is me or I.
The knowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is the reality of experience. Now, for how many years do you need to practice yoga or meditation for this to become clear?
No time.
And could your current knowledge, and I presume it's your, and I think it is your experiential knowledge. It's not, you're not answering me from concepts. You're speaking from your experience. Could the knowledge, the current knowledge you have, that knowing or consciousness is the reality of my experience, could that be improved on?
No. No, the knowing itself cannot. But for example, a body can change or improve in terms of strength.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Once this understanding is clear, the implications of this understanding take some time to unfold. And that's why I liked your answer as to why you practice yoga. Because you said you wanted to include the body in your exploration. So yes, you're absolutely right. It is valid to practice yoga in order to include in order to live the implications of this understanding at all levels of experience, not just the way we think, but the way we feel and sense and perceive and act and relate. You see, we cannot approach who we are. We are already who we are. We can lose beliefs and feelings about ourselves. We can shed ideas that are not true, but we cannot become something that we are not already. That there is no distance from ourself to ourself. We are already ourself. We could only practice being something other than ourself. And in fact, that's what the separate self is. The practice, the habit of imagining and feeling that we are something other than the presence of awareness. So we can practice being a separate self, but we cannot practice being ourselves.
So I guess the resentment in the yoga is somewhere feeling that, moving away from.
I think your resentment at the yoga came from an intuition in you that we have just formulated. An intuition that you were trying to undertake some activity with your mind and body that would somehow bring you closer to yourself. And although you couldn't formulate it to yourself and explain it to yourself in the way we have done in this last 10 minutes, your intuition, your frustration, your resentment came from the intuition that you were somehow going in the wrong direction. You were trying to become, through discipline, what you always and already are. So your resentment was spot on. Now, that doesn't mean that you should necessarily stop practicing yoga, but you must upgrade your reasons for doing so. When you practice yoga, you start as the presence of awareness. And you allow your postures or your movements to unfold within yourself. You don't stand as a body or a mind and try to become the presence of awareness. You start there. You don't finish there.
That makes all sense, yeah.
And just that will transform your yoga practice.
Thank you so much.